Good day, duelists, and welcome to a video I'm calling The Definitive Guide to Identifying Duel Masters Fake Cards. Now, if you've ever scrolled through Duel Masters social media, Reddit, Discord, Facebook and whatnot, there are a lot, and I mean a lot of people asking if their cards are fake. Because unfortunately, the reality is that during Duel Masters' lifespan, many of the cards being distributed were not original, fakes, counterfeits. So when someone finds their childhood collection, it absolutely makes sense for them to question the card's authenticity because more often than not, their concerns are justified. And that's the target audience for this video. So if you've come here to discover if your cards are fake, yes you, I'm pointing towards the camera, welcome. We'll get to that, you've come to the right place. And if you're an experienced duelist or collector who has seen thousands of cards in their lifetime, I mean, you probably can tell if a card is fake or not at a glance, you probably don't need this video, but maybe if you stick around you'll learn a new thing or two or just have a laugh at the quality of some of the fakes I'll be showing. I'll be going over a few easily distinguishable bullet points in this video, and without further ado, let's get to number 1, font. Wrong font can probably help you distinguish more than 90% of fakes out there, so if you take one thing away from this video, let this be the one. English Duel Masters cards have just one set of fonts that they use across all cards made ever. Percival bold for the title, Armanda bold for the race, Officina sans for the description. That's it. There's no stylized alternate text or any bullshit. If it's not these exact fonts, it's a fake card. So what you can do is take a look at your card, Google the card name, look at the two cards side by side. If the fonts don't match, it's a fake. Let's look at some live examples from Reddit to better illustrate the point. Example number 1. This terror pit here. The font in the card name is italic. We search for the real card on the wiki. Is the font italic? No. Fake card. This tropical. The name is italic and also cursive. We take a look at the real card. Is the name italic and cursive? No. Fake card. How about this Dianork? This Dianork looks a bit more legit, doesn't it? Well, if we look at the name on the real card, it doesn't take a sharp eye to notice that it's not the same font. I mean, look at this N in Nork, it's just stylized differently. But if you still can't tell if a card is fake or not, I'll let you in on a little secret. In fact, this is my number 1 easily identifiable trick to tell if the card is fake, and if you just know this one trick, you'll actually be able to tell in most cases. Look at the M's and N's in the creature race. You see how in Guardian the final N is written like an uppercase N, whereas on the real card it's written like a lowercase n? For some reason the vast majority of fakes, like 90% plus, get this wrong. There's literally thousands of examples of fakes with uppercase looking N's and M's in the creature race, and the best part about this tip is that it's very concrete and easily identifiable. Even like looking at just a random card here, this locomotive where you look at the N, right? You look at the N on a real card, you can immediately spot the difference. So the next time you ask yourself if a card is fake, you can start by looking at the uppercase M's and N's in the creature race. And in fact, if we look at this picture, we can notice this mistake here, here, here and here. And yes, I know there's about a billion other things in this picture that scream fake cards. I can hear some of the more experienced collectors screaming at their screen right now, but I'm just trying to focus on the font for this first point. Just to rapid fire through some more examples of bad font. For this Abzadoba that someone posted on Discord, you can immediately tell because it fails the NM test. This Hazard Crawler that I have, well, it doesn't have an N or an M in the race, but if you look at the original card side by side, you can do this by looking it up if you don't own a copy. It doesn't take a very sharp eye to notice that the font in the race is still different. For example, look at how the E is stylized on this card, and then look at how the E is stylized here. You see how it's different. This is like a more rounded E, whereas this one is, you know, more rough. So this one also fails the race font check. For this card in particular, you can also notice that the font in the card description is wrong because this font is much smaller than this one. This Dark Titan Magin that I have is a bit more interesting because it does pass the NM test, but if you look at the font in the creature box, I'll put the real card side by side, you can definitely tell that it's the wrong one. It's supposed to be smaller and more stretched out. Or this Horrid Worm that I have, not only does it fail the NM test, but the text inside the rule box is also much smaller. And for one last tip for recognizing wrong fonts that are not immediately obvious, have a look at this card that someone posted on Discord. Again, if you're an experienced collector, I know all the alarm bells are going off, but if you're someone who doesn't know much about the game, the font doesn't look that bad. It passes the MN test, and there is nothing that you can immediately point to that says this is wrong. But one thing you can do is check the font size, and the best way of doing that is realizing that if you get the font size wrong, the alignment within the card will also be wrong. For example, if you look at the original card and mark where the root text ends, and then draw a straight line through that, you'll notice that it lines up with the end of the S from the artist name, whereas if you repeat the process on the fake card, the end of the text lines up with the start of the S from the artist name instead of the end. The font is ever so slightly smaller, so it's ever so slightly misaligned. This is a trick that you can apply for a lot of different cards. Look at where the text ends, find some anchor point that you can compare it to, and see if it matches the real card. For example, this Bometheus posted by the same user, you can see that on the original card the first line of the text ends after the illus, whereas the fake card, it ends in the middle of the illus. And also, if you look at the portion of the flavor text that overflows after the end of the Fire Civilization logo, on the real card it's just an N, whereas on the fake card it's the full gon. Of course, the ones of you paying attention will have noticed that for this Bometheus, we didn't even have to go this far because it doesn't pass the NM test, so we could just tell it was a fake just based on that. Alright, I think you kinda get the point. That's enough talking about the font. I spent some time talking about this one because this really is enough to tell in the majority of cases. But what if the font is correct, or at least there's no easily identifiable difference? Well, let's move on to clue number 2, which is the card back. Have a look at this screenshot from my card from my childhood video. Spoiler alert, all of these are fake, but have a look at their card backs. Notice how all of them are slightly different from each other? For some reason, fake card printers have a very hard time with getting the card back right. The details on the dragon thingy or the text are often messy, and it's almost always a different shade of blue than it's supposed to be. The thing is, this is easier to see than it is to explain, so the easiest way to tell if a card back is fake or not, if you own at least one card that you know is real, take it and put it next to a card that you suspect is fake. When they're next to each other, you should be able to easily see the difference. I've taken pretty much every single type of fake that I own, and if we go one by one, you'll be able to tell that actually none of them match up the real card back. There's some that are, I guess, close, maybe this one, but even on this one, you can tell that this shade of blue is not this shade of blue. This is sort of a more purpley one. For this one, it's not even close, not even, the shade of blue is not there, but also look at how the Duel Masters logo is written. What else? This one, maybe this one is also kind of close, but you'll notice that the shade of blue is also much darker. So by taking a card back and putting it next to a real card, you should be able to easily tell in most cases if the card back has the right shading and the right sort of details on it. Now, if you don't have a real card to compare against, well, the best thing I can do in this video is show you a whole bunch of different fake card backs next to a real one, which I have done, and hopefully you can kinda tell from what I'm showing you if your card back matches the real one or not. Though do keep in mind that the colors you're seeing on your screen are going through my camera, so they might appear a bit different than in real life. And one last thing to note about the card back is that Duel Masters cards, this might be quite difficult to showcase. They have these sort of holographic zeros and ones at the top that you can only see in certain lighting. There we go, you should be able to see them now on camera. But you will notice that if I tilt the card in certain ways, they become invisible. So they're only visible at certain angles and in certain lighting. Now on a fake card, on the other hand, they will either not appear altogether, so you'll notice that no matter which lighting I hold this card in, there's no holographic 0 and 1s there, or they might appear in the card back, but they will not be holographic and they will be equally visible in every single lighting and angle. For example, you'll notice on this card, well, first of all, the resolution of the zeros and the ones is much lower. You can sort of tell the pixels on them, but you can also hopefully this comes across on camera, but you can tell when I tilt the card that these zeros and ones, they're not holographic like the real ones. Like the real ones are quite difficult to tell from certain angles, and they're much more visible in some light than in other, whereas these 0 and 1s are just sort of constant. They're just there because they're printed on the actual cardboard on the same layer. They're not like on a different layer as they would be on a real card. Again, I'm not sure how well this comes up across on camera. The best way to tell is to hold your cards in good lighting and sort of tilt them. It's hard to explain in words, but I'm hoping that I'm kind of getting the point across in this video. They should be visible from some angles and invisible from some, and if they're not, or if they're missing altogether, or you know, if they're poor resolution and such, it's a fake card. Alright, on to clue number 3. Mistakes on the card. There are very few known minsprints in Duel Masters, and I can pretty much guarantee that you'll never run into one. So for most intents and purposes, if you find a mistake on the card, it's fake. Going back to this example from before, see how this Dianor costs 2 mana but the real one costs 4? That's a fake. See how this Tropico for some reason is named Tropico? That's a fake. Now these ones are obvious, but there are more subtle examples as well. Going back to this Hazard Crawler from before, you see how in the description it says you may tap this creature to stop attack? It's supposed to be you may tap this creature to stop the attack. There's a D missing in there, so the card is fake because we found a mistake. This Holio that I have, this one is interesting because it's actually a pretty decent fake, all things considered. I mean, the font is close enough, the differences are quite subtle, except it says when this spell is purr into your hand instead of put. The best way to look for mistakes is to search your card name on the internet, look at an image of it, and try to spot any mistakes you can find. Do be aware that some cards, not a lot but some cards, have multiple printings that have differences between each other, like set number, different artwork, sometimes different flavor, etc. Thankfully, on the Duel Masters wiki, on each card's card page, you can click on Gallery and you should be able to view an image of all the different printings of your card. In most cases this won't matter, but just in case it does, now you know where to look. Clue number 4. Foiling. The only cards to ever be printed in foil in the Duel Masters TCG are very rares, super rares, and some but not all promotional cards. For very and super rares, you can tell by the icon in the bottom right of the card. If it's a star in a circle like this, it's a very rare. Let's get a good zoom in on that. And if it's 4 points in a cross shape like this, it's a super rare. And these cards are always printed in foil. If it's not a foil, then it's a fake. So for example, this Balisk Barge right here, it's a very rare and we can tell because it has the star in a circle, but it's not a foil as you can tell, so it's a fake. Or this Uber Dragon Bajula, one of the fan favorites, it's a super rare and you can tell from the cross shape, but it's not a foil, so this one is also a fake. Now as for promotional cards, this one's a bit trickier because the rules are a bit inconsistent. You can usually tell that a card is promotional from the number. All main set cards, so non-promotional ones, have a number that's either just a regular number, so this one is 45 out of 55, or they have a number that starts with S for super rare, so for example this one is S6. If it's not a regular number, or if it doesn't start with an S, so for example this one starts with M, this one is M6, and this one here starts with a P, so it's P0, then it means that it's a promotional card. Though there are some exceptions for promo cards that have regular numbers, so honestly, the best way to check is to go to the English promotional cards page on the wiki and see if your card is listed there. It's also worth noting that not all promotional cards are foil, so some due diligence is needed when handling these cards. But thankfully, there's only like 30 or so promos that were ever printed, so for 90% of cases you won't need this information, but hey, if you do need it, you know where to find it. So if you have a foil card like this one, and you see that it's not a very rare, it's not a super rare, and you've looked through the promos page and it's not there, then you have yourself a fake. But foiling can help us identify fakes even beyond whether it's present or not. See, Duel Masters cards have a very distinct foil pattern that's quite difficult to replicate. Again, it's something that's easier to see than to explain, but if you hold a real foil in your hand, you'll notice that the light reflects of it in sort of like a rainbow color and pattern. I'm trying to sort of tilt it to the camera as best as possible, but you'll notice like this sort of rainbowy effect. Especially maybe visible here on the power number. You'll notice that if you tilt it back and forward, it's like, and here on the darkness civilization symbol as well, you'll notice this rainbowy effect. Whereas if I take a fake card and, you know, I do the same, it's not rainbowy, it's like more sort of metallic. So if we hold these two cards side by side, you can tell a very clear difference on how the foiling pattern behaves when you tilt them side by side. Once again, this is sort of something that's maybe a bit difficult to explain, but whenever you tilt the card, you should look, especially at the power number and at the civilization symbol, you should look for this sort of rainbowy pattern, right? This one, it's not rainbowy, so it is a fake card. And even if they try to replicate the sort of rainbowy style. I mean, this is a card, Bombat is not a card that's supposed to be in foil, but just to sort of illustrate the point, do you see how the whole text box is rainbowy, right? The whole text box is rainbowy, there's no accent on the fire symbol. Again, I'm trying to get this on camera as best as possible, whereas on the real card, it's not like the entire card has the same foiling pattern, it's just some parts of it are more foil than others. So if you tilt the card, you will notice, you know, some cards have accents, the civilization symbol, the power, the artwork of the card, they're foiled, but the background of the text description box, not so much. Whereas for a card like this, you know, it's all the same foil. You tilt it back and forth, you'll notice that the rainbow is the same on the entire card, whereas on the real card, once again, it's not like that. It's very easy to tell the difference if you hold the two cards side by side, but I'm sort of trying to explain it as best as possible because you might not own a real foil, and then it's a bit more difficult to tell, but hopefully by following the sort of visuals in this video, you'll be able to follow along. Let's move on to clue number 5, which is print quality. If you look at the text on original Duel Masters cards, you'll notice it's all very crisp. Like even if you zoom in a lot, you know, like we can zoom in on the title, hopefully the camera manages to pick this up correctly. It's very crisp, you shouldn't be able to see any stray pixels. I mean, of course, camera focus is one thing, but in principle, you know, you should not be able to see any stray pixels. Of course, you know, for example, if we look at that 3 in the corner, that's just the camera not focusing properly. But in real life, it's very easy to tell, maybe if I hold it here, that the text is very, very crisp. Whereas, if we take a look at a fake card, you know, it immediately becomes obvious. Well, maybe I can hold them like this and you can kind of tell the difference. The text is much blurrier. Like for the real card, you can see the individual outline of each letter. You know, the A is an A, you can see it, whereas on the fake card it sort of bleeds out. Once again, this is something that maybe the camera won't be able to pick up properly, but I think it kind of can. You can tell that the F is blurry, right? Like the entire text is much blurrier. If we hold it like this, maybe this is a good way to compare them. You'll notice that it's very pixelated on the fake card compared to the real one. So again, you shouldn't be able to see any of this like pixel bleed on any real card that you can see here. So if you compare these two titles side by side, it should be quite easy to tell. And these examples are very, you know, recognizable. There are some others like this one, where you'll be able to recognize the subpar quality if you zoom in a lot. Once again, the camera makes this difficult, but if you look at the way this May word is written, you'll notice that, you know, the letter is not quite crisp. There's something off about it. There's some stray pixels. If we look at a real locomotiver, like look at how the May is here. Do you see how crisp it is? Well, again, it's difficult to tell because the camera resolution is limited, but it's much crisper. There is no stray pixels. You can tell the outline of the card. You can follow the M and know that it's an actual M. It's not like chopped up, sort of, you know? It's not like there are some stray bits that just look out of place. Again, this is one of those things that might not be immediately obvious, but over time, once you've seen enough cards, you really start to develop a feel for it. On to clue number 6, and this is going to be a very quick one. Card size. Duel Masters cards are exactly 63mm by 88mm, same size as Pokemon and MTG cards. If a card is smaller or larger, then it's a fake. The differences can be quite subtle, but for example, if we take this legendary binder and, you know, align it to the edge of the other card, you'll see that there's some spillover. Like this card that I put on top is just a little bit smaller than the other one. Like it's millimeters off, but there's still a difference that you should be able to measure with a ruler, or if you have once again a real card or just a card that's the right size, you can make this test where you put them on top of each other and you should be able to see the difference. Not much more to say about this one. It's a quick and easy way to check. The only reason why I put this low on the list is because it kinda only weeds out obvious fakes. Like most fake makers can at least get the card size right, if nothing else. So it's a very situational tell, but nonetheless it is a hint that you should keep in your radar. And lastly, on to clue number 7, surface finish. Now, this is a bit of a more advanced one, and it's going to be really difficult to show on camera, but it's something very difficult to replicate on fake cards, so I decided to include it anyway. See, Duel Masters cards have a very sort of rough surface. You can kind of feel it by rubbing your finger on top of a real card. It's once again hard to explain with words, but when you have it side by side with a fake card, you'll probably immediately notice that the fake cards feels smoother and more sort of slippery, glossy, like there's less resistance when rubbing your finger on top of it. In real life it's easy to tell by sound, but you know, it's probably not getting picked up by the camera, but if we put it in certain lighting, so do you see how the light reflects off of this card? You can see these like, you know, dense, like rough spots on the cardboard. You know, you can see that there's maybe, how should I put this, deformation, right? There's like the cardboard is not one smooth surface. It's rough, it's rugged. You know, you can tell here as well how the light reflects. Whereas we move on to the fake card. Do you see how the light reflects here? How it's much glossier. You know, there's way less. You know, it's flatter. It's like a pancake. It's flatter than a pancake, as they say. And maybe if I put them side by side, we can tell this easily. You know how the light reflects on top of the fake card, much glossier, much less resistance. Whereas on the real card, you know, you can kind of tell if the camera focuses that the surface is much more rigid. Once again, it's something that's, you know, it's almost impossible to explain with words. Like I kind of tried to tell tried my best to be able to do it, but it's something that you develop a feel. You know, when you hold a card in your hand, it's really obvious if you sort of rub your finger on them. If you have a real card and a fake card, you can try this yourself. The feeling is just much more different. So you can do the finger rubbing test, and you can also try to put them in lighting to see if the surface matches. It's once again kind of a more advanced tip, and it's the only like advanced tip I'll include in this video, but this one is just so difficult to replicate, and so many fakes get this wrong that I felt like it was a worthwhile inclusion in this video. And I think this is a good place to call it. There's of course many more advanced tells that a card might be fake, but with just these 7 tips alone in your arsenal, you should be able to identify more than like 99.9% of fakes out there. And since this video is aimed more at people who don't have much experience with identifying fake cards, I think sticking to the easily identifying tells makes the most sense. Plus, you know, I don't want this video to be 3 hours long. With all of that said, duelists and potential duelists, I hope this video has managed to help at least some of you. Stay vigilant, and until next time, take care.